honorable ministers, dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of those few privileged people who've had an opportunity to be associated with the vibrant Gujarat program in the very first year of its organization. I do recollect that the first one was held in a modest-sized auditorium in Ahmedabad city. And that was about 11, 12 years ago, when I, as India's Trade Minister in Mr. Vajpayee's government, was one of the participants. But since then, it's grown to be perhaps the most formidable instruments for economic activity, not only in Gujarat, but also in India. This group discusses corporate social responsibility, and speaking prior to me, Mrs. Rajshri Birla gave the background of the context in which it has become extremely relevant in India. Traditionally, India had a tradition, and a very powerful tradition, for philanthropy. And this tradition for philanthropy emanated from India's culture. An essential ingredient of our culture, our religions, was that the weakest in the society has to be served first. We had the concept of the Daridra Narayan who should be worshipped. That is the poorest in the society who must pay your tribute to. And when the Honorable Minister from Denmark mentioned that he visited Gandhiji's ashram today, it was Gandhiji who propagated this to a new level altogether. Even when there was no formal CSR in India, the concept of Antoday as a part of government programs, that is, all welfare programs and economic programs, must commence with first enumerating who the weakest sections of the society are. And then the programs which must benefit the weakest sections of the society must be launched first. It is that segment which had the first and the foremost right as far as the national exchequer was concerned. Even without CSR, if you just recollect back, barring state-supported schools and colleges, the other ones which started almost a century ago were mostly supported by the community. The community base could be religions, and this could be different religions altogether. This could be sects. These were caste groups who pooled in their resources, and most of our educational institutions, our healthcare institutions, came up through that charity cause. Community activities all emanated from that cause itself. In fact, it's just a coincidence that I again refer to Mrs. Birla. She represents a family which for more than 100 years has a tradition of being one of the foremost families which created these kind of institutions in the country. Where people started discussing in the first paper on the social responsibility of businesses, because you earn, you must pay back. The definitions across the world were somewhat different. That the sustainable growth also includes that you serve those whom economic activity doesn't extend to. It's only in the last few decades that this whole idea gained far bigger ground. Independent of this tradition of philanthropy, charity, community-based activities, statutorily we've now started recognizing it since 2013 in our new company law. So India's new company law has a mandatory provision, Section 135, where companies making a profit, out of that profit, have to earmark a certain percentage, 2%, which has to be spent on corporate social responsibility. Now, merely spending it on your own employees or legitimizing what you've already been doing is not CSR. It's a little more challenging. It's a little more challenging. In the old philanthropy purposes that we followed, there were several purposes on which the taxation laws gave you various forms of rebates. They incentivized charity. That is not the case here. Because what you are now spending is profit after you've paid tax. So there is no additional tax advantage that you get out of it. Of course, there are some purposes on which if you spend, and those purposes are independently entitled to a tax rebate under our income tax laws, you will be entitled to those. But the purposes on which you spend, which are mentioned in the 7th schedule of the Act itself, and that's an expandable 7th schedule, by an executive action we can keep expanding it. Those purposes, some of those are independently covered under tax rebate, so you may get the advantage, many others are not. So the government has an ability to play with the joints. That is, if we want a greater CSR to be spent on a particular social purpose, then the government can itself independently bring amendments to the fiscal laws so that a rebate is given, so people are incentivized doubly to spend on those purposes itself. Now, speaking about some of the recent programs, a reference was made just to the cleanliness campaign, the Swachh Bharat campaign. That's been added as a CSR purpose. And I find an enormous amount of enthusiasm across the country as far as this campaign is concerned. Very rarely have I seen a government program which is being adopted by the society as a whole. Not merely for a CSR purpose, but in a social pursuit itself. So you have schools, educational institutions, corporates, residents, associations in different localities wanting to make India cleaner. One of the essential aspects of this program also is that all rural homes in India, and most of them don't have a functional toilet, must, through the contribution of the society, acquire a toilet. Governmental funding is going to be diverted in that direction, and I do hope a lot of CSR funds also get diverted in this direction. The other purposes which I have seen, where there is a tremendous enthusiasm in the society, a reference was just made to the program for financial inclusion, the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana. Only 58% of the families in India had a bank account. Out of about 24 lakh families in India, 14 lakhs have a bank account, or at least one member has a bank account. The other 10 lakhs didn't have a bank account. And therefore, when we assumed office, the Prime Minister simultaneously on Independence Day and a day before that announced these two flagship schemes. And this scheme was that every Indian family must have a bank account. We can exclude young children out of that. And we started this campaign. I was today morning in a village area a little distance away from Baroda, where each one of us as a part of the not the corporate social responsibility, but the politician's social responsibility. That's the third program the Prime Minister has adopted, that every elected member of Parliament and State Assembly must go and adopt a village. And the welfare of that village is now your responsibility. So as a part of that village adoption, I had gone into the interiors And a young lady, she must have been in early 20s, she said, I am the business development officer for the State Bank. I've gone to each and every home, and my area is now 100% financially included. And to our amazement, the spirit of the Indian society is such that from 14th August, a day prior to the Independence Day when this program was launched, till 26th of January, we intended to have 10 crore, that's 100 million bank accounts, new bank accounts. Because only 58% had it, we have to approach the rest of the society. We are still a few weeks away, and we've already reached 110 million, 11 crore people. And to enable this to be done, it's not merely the banking industry which has accepted this as their responsibility. The state sector insurance companies, they've come up, for which government supplements by way of a premium, that any account holder gets additional advantages. If he operates the account, he gets an overdraft facility. To incentivize him to operate the account, we are going to be transferring, and from the 1st of January this year, we've already started transferring the cash in lieu of the LPG subsidies. Sooner or later, it will even translate into kerosene subsidies. To incentivize them further, whoever is a bank account holder gets a credit card. That credit card itself, besides being a credit card, has two other advantages. It has an inbuilt accident insurance, and it has an inbuilt life insurance, which is again state supported. And the public sector insurance companies have come forward to adopt that program itself. Now, this is the width at which this social programming, which is intertwined with the economic activity and the economic aspirations of the people, which is now reaching. But CSR, by leading Indian corporates, once channelized and structured in this direction, is going to play a very important role. When I was on this village adoption program today morning, there are various governmental schemes which will fund a large part of each. And where do the other funds come from? So I said, well, I as a member of parliament are entitled to divert a part of my MP lad funds, which I will do. And that's not going to be sufficient. In which case, I shall also be making a request to at least 2 or 3 corporates to kindly look at this programs which these villages have undertaken. So it's a fallback as a CSR in which each one of these areas could be specifically developed itself. The rationale behind this development is, even though we are proud of the fact that we are growing faster than most countries in the world, but still there is a huge amount of inequality in India. The Prime Minister announced the Swachh Bharat campaign because a very large part of India still does not have access to drinking water, does not have access to toilets. There's still a very large section of Indian population which lives below the poverty line. If we look at India geographically, and we have a line running across through the length of India, probably states to the east of India are far less developed than the states to the west of India. So there is an inter-regional inequality. And if we look at such specific areas, particularly the tribal areas, the northeastern states, they need a larger chunk of state support. They need a larger share of corporate support. And I'm sure combined with economic development and growth, this whole impetus which is being given to the social responsibility through all these programming, we shall see a much better future as far as our country is concerned. I thank you very much, Madam, for having given me this opportunity to interact with this crowd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that visionary address. We look forward that CSR has been taken care of in our country in the best of the manner. Now our Honorable Union Minister Shri Arun Jaitley sir will take our leave as he has to proceed to the trade show. We are highly grateful for your august presence over here and giving time to this wonderful seminar. Please, a round of applause for sir. This is the moment of pride to have such eminent dignitaries before us. Please maintain the decorum of the seminar hall. Kindly be seated at your places. Thank you. Taking this seminar ahead, just excuse me for a while. Yeah, thank you. Taking the seminar ahead, we would like to do the screening of CSR audio-video presentation reflecting a mere glimpse of the range of CSR activities undertaken by PSUs in Gujarat and the opportunities that lie ahead.
Once upon a time in Gujarat, somewhere in scorching Saurashtra, a thirsty villager, having walked miles, finds a water pot. Somebody someday must have thought of his thirst. A bench that an old man finds when he can't walk.
We are expecting our Chief Minister, Shrimati Anandiben Patel. So I would request all of the audience to kindly be seated.
For the
Thank you.
Animals. What is all this? In simple words, it is service to humanity and all beings. And in corporate words, we call it CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. And we, the Gujaratis, have been doing this silent CSR since time immemorial. Welcome to the world of power, excellence, entrepreneurship, and limitless opportunities for sharing and caring. Welcome to Gujarat. Earning, sharing, and caring. Here in Gujarat, you will find the shining examples of CSR everywhere. Apart from private companies, many state PSUs too have been pouring their gratitude towards society with impressive work done for the welfare and empowerment of women, children, schools, girls' education, health, rural and urban infrastructure projects, somewhere in form of a school for children, or even just a bench for tired limbs. Elsewhere by setting a reverse osmosis plant to provide fluoride, chloride and nitrate-free, safe drinking water to 74 nearby villages. Or a mobile medical van providing healthcare across 13 villages. Also sharing pain for their fellow citizens when disasters strike. At the national level too, the Government of India decided to facilitate such big-hearted entrepreneurs with the right kind of environment for CSR. It was in 2013 that the government passed a mandate to the companies operating in India to spend 2% of their average net profit of 3 years for CSR activities. Today, Gujarat invites companies operating in the state to increase your profits by sharing them with society. With the setting up of the CSR Authority, Gujarat provides an institutional mechanism for bringing together corporate funds and immense opportunities in developmental works. The authority will have representatives of industry associations as well as social sector departments with a mandate to optimize CSR outcomes in Gujarat. The Chief Minister will head the CSR Advisory Board and provide guidance on taking up CSR projects in the state. Partnerships beckon you in extending the reach of healthcare and medical services to the poorest families, setting up special care units and medical units. We can ensure that healthcare reaches till the last man in the queue. Together, we can sustain the Doodh Sanjeevani Yojana to ensure that no child stays hungry or malnourished. Together, we can expand and hone the high-quality skill training program to ensure that no youth is deprived of fair chance to prove himself. Together, we can make life easier for tribal students. Together, we can transform schools into places where young minds can blossom to meet the emerging needs of the future. Let's come together to wipe tears, bring smiles, to bridge the gaps, and to create a caring society. CSR, more than just responsibility, it's a duty, and it is never too late to touch a human heart.
A lovely presentation, and each one should start CSR from their heart as well. With all of your permission, I would like to welcome and give a brief introduction of Ms. Iya Hitavur, CSR Manager, UNICEF, Geneva. MSc in Economics and Business Administration, she has had a strong international career. She represents UNICEF on various CSR-related platforms, including the UNGC Human Rights Working Group and corporate stakeholder consultations. I would request ma'am to give a presentation on creating an enabling environment for children, business impact and the role of CSR. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah.
I request you to kindly constrain your presentation by 10 minutes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Just show the first. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, my distinguished panelists, which are only 4 left, but nevertheless, it is a pleasure to be here. This is actually my second time here. I don't know how many of you have been here before, but I came here 2 years ago, and it is amazing how this event has grown, and really congratulations for the organizers. And I think it's fair to say also that it is particularly impressive that already 2 years ago there was a session on CSR, on which I participated in as well. And obviously a lot has happened in the CSR scene during these 2 years, so it is very exciting to be here. And as a representative of UNICEF, you may have guessed what I'm going to speak about. So it is about children and business. And before I get to bore you with my talking, I'm going to show you a little video which is going to be explaining a bit about the UNICEF approach to corporate social responsibility. So I represent the corporate social responsibility unit of the headquarters of UNICEF. So I'm based in Geneva, where we are 10 people currently working on this agenda since 3 years approximately. We also have CSR people now in our regional centers in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And even here in India, we have a dedicated person, Ruchira. May I introduce you? So it is definitely something that is core to our engagement with the private sector. And I'm going to show you now a little video which is bringing you a bit more familiar with, or giving you a bit more of an introduction to what we do.
How do we actually work with different organisations here? Just a couple of examples, just to build upon what Natalie was saying. We've been taking a number of our staff from the UK, qualified staff. They actually look at engineering, construction, trainer. They were looking at leadership and management. And we've actually been working with Indian organisations, delivering those programs here. So in India, just as an example, we're actually working with schools. Leadership and training, leadership and management training. We're also helping them to deliver some of their curriculum. And we delivered a day last month to 10 teachers. And we've actually now subscribed for another bidding for 100 teachers from
think you have Gates
We're
voice.
working with Jindal Community College.
The more technology there is, the more complicated it gets. Yes. How's that?
In 2012, UNICEF, Save the Children and the Global Compact led a process to develop the children's rights and business principles. But what are children's rights? The Universal Declaration on Human Rights declared that children needed special care and protection. As a result, in 1989, the United Nations adopted a resolution giving rights to children everywhere, the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is the most ratified treaty in the world.
The Convention calls on all of us to help the children of the world. We all have to turn the promises of the Convention into a reality on every part of the globe.
The Convention spells out the basic human rights of all children in 54 articles and 2 optional protocols. With the Convention, the world made a set of universal promises to all children. The Convention has changed the lives of millions of children and clearly sets out that all children everywhere have rights. But we still live in a world where too many children don't enjoy rights or have them fulfilled. If children have the right to education, why are 57 million children not attending primary school? If children have the right to health, why are 3.3 million children under 15 living with HIV? If children have the right not to be exploited, why are 168 million children engaged in child labour? So why are these promises not fulfilled? In ratifying the Convention on the Rights of the Child, a state accepts to respect, protect, promote and fulfil the rights. But not all the promises outlined in the Convention translate into meaningful action for children. Human rights and children's rights are about the choices we make every day as a human being. They are the responsibilities we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. Translating child rights principles into practice requires action and leadership by governments, but also by families, communities, individuals, and business. Every day, business interacts with children, although often neither directly nor purposefully. Children are workers in factories and fields, family members of employees and community members in the neighbourhoods where businesses operate. Business has an impact on children's rights beyond child labour. Business has a responsibility to respect children's rights. Building on the guiding principles on business and human rights, UNICEF, Save the Children and the Global Compact led a process to develop the children's rights and business principles. The 10 principles set out actions for business to respect and support children's rights in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Companies should know and show that they do not infringe on children's rights. So how can business respect and support children's rights? Promote employment of young workers. Influence business partners to respect and support children's rights. Ensure responsible marketing practices. Make sure that products and services are safe for children. Help to build the strength of communities where children live and grow.
The children's rights and business principles need business to take a leading role of promoting them.
I think that there is actually an opportunity for businesses to start thinking about child rights.
One of the challenges in addressing human rights anywhere, and children's rights in particular, is you can't see it all the time.
When we're talking about children, they are the children of our employees or the employees of our suppliers. They are consumers. They're also our future.
Thinking about how child rights fits into their employment practices, their products and services, And then lastly, also what they're doing in the community as a corporate social citizen.
I think business has an important role in the sense that it has a strong lobby with government and with consumers. And if it can use that constructively, then I think we can start to get going.
I think partnering up, companies, NGOs, UN or agencies and governments, that's when you really have the possibility of having a positive impact.
Companies and institutions that advance the respect for children and advance respect for human beings win.
Take action for children now. Change starts with you. Children are everyone's business.
Excellent. So as you can see, CSR at UNICEF, it's a bit broader than the kind of a CSR definition that is commonly used here in India. But nevertheless, I think it's broader, but it incorporates as well as business behavior as such. It is also about the goodness of community investment and making sure that that you as a responsible community member address these issues. So as a definition, corporate social responsibility at UNICEF refers to efforts towards positively changing business behavior and practices as those affect children. And this is not something that we do in isolation with business only. We actually have 3 areas in which we work. We work with the private sector, we work with governments, and we work with other stakeholders, including our internal functions, where when we deliver programs, we try to incorporate CSR aspects into that. And of course, we can't work directly with all the millions of companies in the world. So what we try to do is we work with those who are already leaders in their field to basically generate good practices which can be leveraged by other companies. So we work with some of the industry leaders, we work with industry associations so that we can scale up the work we do, and we work with coalitions and platforms developed by governments to build capacity in the countries so that people understand and businesses understand how important children are as stakeholders to the private sector. So I wanted to speak about quickly, because I know that we're running out of time, some examples of our work and how they can also relate to the business here. So when this unit was founded a couple of years back, in this video it spoke about the children's rights and business principles, and this is a framework that was launched at the time. And we actually convened businesses to start developing guidance which would be practical and help companies on how they can address children's rights in the workplace, marketplace, and community. And this is a group of companies that we worked with, and I'd like to mention also that the Confederation of Indian Industries was part of this kind of pilot phase where we looked at guidance for companies on how to develop policies, how to develop codes of conduct, how to assess your impact in community and children, how to actually report, how to use sustainability reporting in context of children's rights. So there were various elements. And based on this work, we've now moved into a more sector-specific approach, where we try to look at specific sectors and those areas which are particularly challenging or where there are particular opportunities when it comes to children. And some of the industry associations that we work with are listed here. So we work a lot with the ICT sector. We look at the issues like children and the digital world. What does it mean? What kind of opportunities there are? What kind of challenges there are? Child online protection, for instance, being one. We work with the ICT supply chain. We work with the food and beverages industry, sourcing of certain raw materials. There's issues with child labor. There can be issues with trafficking. So how do we address this collectively? So this is very much the foundation of our work. And in different countries, this collaboration looks different. So I have some examples from Asia here. So, for instance, in Malaysia, we work very much through the Companies Commission, which is an organization which represents all the registered companies in Malaysia. So it's a great platform where you can reach a lot of companies at the same time. And we've developed some training programs for companies where they can actually go through some assessments and learn what could it mean in their context and how they can actually make a difference by just adjusting their corporate practices. We've also developed guidance specifically for Malaysian companies based on the request of what the companies needed. So there were issues like how to set up a childcare center to enable female employees, mothers, to better work and have less absentee hours. How to develop a breastfeeding room for mothers so that they didn't have to stay at home or actually quit their jobs. How to have flexible working hours for parents. And what about young workers, those who are between 14, 15 and 18-year-olds? So how to address and how to encourage employment but make sure that health and safety aspects are respected. So this is the kind of work we do in Malaysia. In Thailand, we've taken quite a different approach. We hope to start collaboration with the stock exchange there to set some standards for the publicly listed companies. But essentially, we've had one company who's taken really leadership in driving the agenda forward in Thailand. So it's a company called Sansiri, they are property developers, so a major real estate company who has shown leadership in a very challenging industry, construction, where a lot of young workers especially are being exploited and there are issues. So they've been advocating for change within the industry, but they've also helped UNICEF in a very specific issue where we had problems, which was policy change related to iodine. So in Thailand, iodine wasn't added to salt, which resulted in iodine deficiency and which had very severe health impacts on children. And Sansiri, actually, they had a huge marketing machine because they advertised for their real estate and the projects. So they leveraged this machine and actually advocated within the country for this change. And within 6 months, actually, this change happened and it became a government policy. So that's a fantastic example of what companies can do by leveraging their core existence and the facilities and the structure they have. In Indonesia, we work together with the government-established platform, which is called UPSI. It's a child-friendly companies initiative where the government has really initiated it, and there's 20 top Indonesian companies who've created a kind of a framework of KPIs, key performance indicators, by which good practice is taught to other companies. And they show by leadership in this area. And there's also a certification and awards related to that. And about India, so what are you doing in India? So India, obviously, we've been, as I said already, we have a dedicated person here, Ruchira, and we've been doing quite a lot, working with the government, working at the state level. So Confederation of Indian Industries is one channel. It has been very much platform driven, but we hope that in the future it's going to be possibly also broader, and we'll be able to share a lot of examples from the different states where we're already building capacity and doing initiatives, and we'll be able to share experiences because I think it's very important. The peer-to-peer learning from each of you as companies and individuals is really the best way to learn. And so moving forward, what does it look like? So here in India, I think we have lots of interesting industry specific examples that we hope to grow. So for instance, there's an interesting tea initiative starting now. We're looking to work with the ICT sector, which is obviously interesting. But basically, it really, our role is to convene the business, convene the government, and see how we can all work together and how we can achieve and drive for results for children. And may this be by specific guidance, developing guidance for Indian companies. It may be different tools, but it also, a lot is to do with capacity building and training. So let's go and start it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ia, for the wonderful video presentation and also a great address. we'll halt for a while over here because we are expecting our Honorable Chief Minister any moment. Thank you. I would request you to kindly maintain the decorum of the hall. Just wait for a while. As she's stuck up in some another work, we would like to call upon the another delegate for the presentation. With immense pleasure and pride, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Girendri Bihari, Director, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, India Office. Mr. Bihari has also served as Director of Global Health Strategy at the Gates Foundation and was the Foundation representative on the board of UNITAD. He was also with the World Bank with different profiles. I humbly request Mr. Bihari to present before us his ideas on CSR. This is beyond philanthropy. Sir would like to make a video presentation before he starts his address.
40,700 square meters, which is about 10 acres.
Over 2.5 billion people have no access to safe sanitation. We asked brilliant engineers to help us solve this problem. And one of those engineers actually has proposed a solution where the waste is valuable.
The Omni processor turns sewer sludge, which is kind of nasty, into clean drinking water, electricity, and ash that is pathogen-free. This is where the sludge enters the machine. It goes up this conveyor belt, is fed into these large tubes we call the dryer. That's where we boil the sludge. And in the boiling process, we separate the water vapor from the solids. The solids are now dry, and we can feed them into the fire. Once we have this very hot fire, we can make high pressure, high temperature steam. And we take that steam and we send it to a steam engine. And the steam engine drives a generator that makes electricity that we use for the processor, and also excess electricity that can be delivered back to the community. The water vapor that's created in the boiling process is run through a cleaning system until we have the cleanest, purest water you can possibly imagine.
The sanitation system as we know it in the developed world cannot work in developing countries. So what we need in developing countries is a very simple system.
The entrepreneur that owns this processor will get paid for the input, the sludge. And that same entrepreneur will get paid for the outputs, the electricity, the water, and the ash.
I am very impressed with this solution we're seeing here. It generates electricity, it generates clean water.
It will grow to every corner of the earth that needs it because it makes money every day.
It's water.
The company that makes this processor is called Janaki Industries, and its real function is to make high precision machine parts for the aerospace industry, for maritime companies and so on. And its founder, who you saw in this video, decided to apply his expertise to the disposal of human waste, which we know in India is a huge problem. And think of it as his CSR initiative, if you want. So he invested some of his own resources in developing this processor. He involved all of his kids as well as part of the backstory of this guy here, and approached us for receiving additional funding from the Gates Foundation to support improvements in this approach. So if it's successful, and we'll see yet whether it is successful, it has to go through several iterations of field testing, and hopefully one of which will be in India. This approach can transform how we can think about disposal of human waste that with decentralized solutions such as this one, which would be especially helpful in places like India, where a sewer solution is not always available or feasible. So that Janaki Omni processor, the processor you just saw, is I think an example of what we might be able to achieve when a business focuses its strength into delivering solutions to sticky social problems, which is a bit the promise of CSR. My panelists and colleagues in the audience, let me start by simply saying that there's a bit of a difference between the work we do at the foundation and CSR. We're not CSR. We are a private foundation. We're funded by the private wealth of Bill and Melinda. Therefore, what I'm going to talk about applies to us, but not strictly. The laws that govern private foundations in the United States are different from those that govern CSR in India. Nonetheless, I believe that there's a few lessons from the work we do that might be helpful. But if you don't, you will just indulge me for perhaps speaking out of church. So traditional philanthropy has had some effect, but it's self-limiting. It's a bit seen as the usual way of charity, and many people recognize it as being a useful piece of society, but not necessarily transformative piece of society. And in a place like India, where the scale is just massive, small things matter, but they don't achieve the kind of impact that we seek. And I think there's a risk, frankly, if I may say so, that the CSR opportunity is lost in some respect, and that we go down a path of somewhat marginal effect, and not see the full potential of what this CSR could be, and work at the scale of a few districts, a few schools, a few toilets, but not embrace the problem at the scale in which it needs to be embraced. In sanitation and the other sectors in which we work on in India, which are health, financial inclusion, and agriculture, we think in terms of catalytic philanthropy. And I want to spend a minute describing what it means for us. It starts with recognizing three things. The first one is that we are very small. And even though by philanthropic terms we are quite large, just like you in CSR, we're actually quite small relative to the problem. And I'll give an illustration of that, which is all the donors together in the health sector in India, all the external partners together, account for 1.2 to 1.6% of health spending in India. And we are a fraction of 1%. That's how small we are relative to the problem that we're trying to solve in the health sector. If you look at sanitation, the deficit for safe sanitation in India is about 630 million toilets. That's huge, and that's just the toilet part of it. At the back end of it, you have to think about the septage, the sewage system, and the safe disposal system as well. So we are small. The second one, though, is we work at the scale of the problem. So we don't shy away from the fact that there are 630 million toilets to be built, that we are a small part of the healthcare system. We embrace it. That's the second part of it. Therefore, the disconnect between our ability and our resources and the impact we try to achieve needs to be bridged. And this is where catalysis comes in. And the question we ask ourselves constantly is how do we amplify our effort? How do we amplify the scale of our effort? How do we get much more bang for the buck from the work we do directly? And I would say there's a few features of what we do that allow us to bridge the gap between our resources and the impact we seek to achieve. The first one is the example you just saw, which is innovation. Innovation, ideas are powerful. Ideas get picked up by other people and has a huge potential when it's done well. Another example I'll give of innovation we've had is the development with an Indian company, the Serum Institute of Vaccines, of a vaccine for meningitis A, which is a horrible disease that has affected West Africa to East Africa for decades. Every few years, you have a huge epidemic that devastates the economy. It's really a cruel disease that can take a kid, 48 hours, you're dead. 48 hours, you're disabled for life. So we work with that company, Serum Institute of India, to develop a vaccine that costs 30 rupees per dose. And that vaccine now has been used for about 210 million people in India. I'm going to pause here just to make sure that we are...
Sir, you can continue.
I can continue, okay. Or not.
Just hold on, sir. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay.
Please join me in welcoming our Honorable Chief Minister, Srimati Anandiben Patel, our first woman Chief Minister of Gujarat State. We welcome you, ma'am. Thank you for gracing our event. We're highly grateful. With ma'am's permission, you can continue, sir.
Shall I continue?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'll keep going, and it won't be very long, so you have a chance to hear from the Chief Minister in a second. So I was talking about the power of innovation and giving the example of the work we have done with Serum Institute of India, which is an Indian company, to develop a vaccine at 30 rupees per dose that has had a tremendous effect on populations all over Africa. And that vaccine, when it was used once in a place like Chad, brought down the number of cases by 94%. That was just one campaign. And just this week, we just heard from the World Health Organization that they're going to actually allow this vaccine now to be used in infants, in addition to children 1 year and above. So that's an example of that. But those examples are big ones. The one I showed you, the Janaki one, and this example are big ones. So don't be put off by that. Innovations exist at all levels of the system, from very high-end engineering R&D work to all the way down to the value chain to when you reach the customer. So that was the first feature, I would say, of how do you bridge the gap between your resources and impact you seek to have. The second one is partnership. We are proud of our work we do, but we believe that philanthropy, CSR, has a special role to play, but we don't fool ourselves in terms of believing we can do it alone. We cannot do it alone. An example I'll give to you is that, again, because of the scale problem we just mentioned a second ago. And the example I'll give is one of the most amazing successes of India in the recent past, which is the polio eradication program, which was done by the government of India and the state governments. It could not have been done by anybody else. No private entity, no CSR could have done this work. And yet, there were a few organizations like UNICEF, which my colleague here represents, which played a tremendously important role in terms of catalyzing this impact that the government of India and state governments were able to have. When you work in partnership, there's a risk of dilution of credit, because you can't put your flag completely, right? And it's a risk that CSR organizations may actually face, and which we face, but we don't care about. I mean, we're more than happy to be invisible in the process and let others people take the credit. But it is an element of what you want to think about in terms of partnership. The third one is data and measurement. Data and measurement, shedding the light on the problem, is a tremendously powerful way of working. And we have many examples of that in India. The ASA report, which is the annual State of Education report, which is going to be launched tomorrow in Delhi, also has, for example, shed the light on education outcomes in India, and has had a tremendous effect in terms of prompting people to action. That's an example of how you can use philanthropy for greater effect. Linked with that is the issue of voice. Many of you here are superstars in your own right. You're celebrities in your own right. You're business leaders. So your voice is as much part of your CSR proposition as your money. And I think this is something that you need to think about, of how you use your own voice and your own platforms to be able to have bigger effect than just your dollars and just your rupees. And the last one I'll talk about is technical assistance. Again, as businesses, you know certain things that are difficult to know for the government have tough time doing. You know how to do marketing, you know how to do communication, you know how to do supply chain, you know how to do ICT, you know how to do management. All these features are actually intrinsic to your work, are things that government and other players could usefully benefit from your support. So when you think about it, like we do, the elements of the work that you need to do to be successful as a CSR are more akin to business than they are akin to philanthropy, understood in the traditional terms. So in some respect, when you go to CSR, I would say don't make it part of your pure communications team or pure part of your compliance team. You actually think about it in terms of like how you can use my business skills to apply them to having a greater impact. So I'll end here. I could spend much longer time speaking about this, but I say one more time, our work is not CSR, it's different. What I said may not apply to you because you are governed by different laws, but hopefully some of this will be also applicable to the work you do going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing the work of your foundation. We appreciate. Now I humbly request S. Aparna, Principal Secretary, Economic Affairs and Planning, to kindly welcome our Honorable Chief Minister with the fruit basket. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I would now request Srimati Anandiben Patel to release the coffee table book, Rural Footprints, as Madam gives a lot of emphasis to empowering rural women in Gujarat. The book release is by the most appropriate person. Thank you very much, ma'am, for doing the honors. Let's move to the next phase of this seminar, that is the exchange of MOUs in presence of our Honorable Chief Minister. Foremost is MOU of Rail Vikas Nigam Limited with GIDB of 1,655 crores for regional rail system in Ahmedabad. Next is MOU of Indochine Development Private Limited with GIDB of 9,000 crores for setting up of Indian International Trade Center. Further is MOU of Ocean Agro India with GMDC for biofertilizers. Moving ahead is MOU of Bhadresh Trading Company with GMDC for establishment of cement plant. Keep applauding. I request the audience keep applauding. Thank you. Coming up are the MOUs for the CSR sector. A moment of pride and best wishes to all the organizations. Thank you. Coming up are the MOUs for the CSR sector. As I said, foremost is MOU of Gujarat Industrial Power Company Limited for sanitation and construction of toilets. Keep applauding, crowd. Thank you. Next MOU is of Wellspun Group of 75 crores for CSR activities in education, empowerment and environment and health. Many congratulations. Moving ahead is the MOU of JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals Limited of 3 crore for CSR activity in health. I repeat, JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals Limited, MOU of 3 crore for CSR activity in health. Okay. Finally, JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals Limited of 3 crore for CSR activity in health. A big round of applause for all of them and best wishes for the future. Last but not the least is the MOU of Syntex Industries Limited of 3 crore for CSR activity in sanitation. તાળીઓ ઓછી પડે છે, વધવી જોઈએ. Thank you. આ CSR અહીંયાથી ચાલુ થવું જોઈએ. અહીંયા જ કંજૂસી થશે તો CSR નહીં થાય. Thank you. હું મેડમને રિક્વેસ્ટ કરીશ કે આ સેમિનાર માટે પ્લીઝ આપના આશીર્વચનો આપશો પ્લીઝ. Thank you.
મિત્રો, આપ બધાએ CSRનો ઉપયોગ જુદા જુદા કામો માટે કરવાના છો, એના આજે MOU સાઇન થયા છે ને મને બેહદ ખુશી છે કે CM બન્યા પછી જે વિષયને મેં અભિયાનના સ્વરૂપમાં લીધું છે, ખાસ કરીને માલ ન્યુટ્રિશન અને ઘર ઘર ટોયલેટ બનાવવા માટેનું, ગ્રામ્ય કક્ષા સુધી પાણી પહોંચાડવા માટેનું, હેલ્થ અને એજ્યુકેશનમાં પણ એના દ્વારા આપણે કામ કરી શકીએ એના માટેનું, અને એમાં બધાઓએ જે સહયોગ કર્યો છે એના માટે આ બધાઓનું ખૂબ ખૂબ અભિનંદન આપું છું. આપણામાં કહેવામાં આવે છે કે કોઈ વ્યક્તિ પોતે કમાય અને કમાયા પછી પોતાના જ ઘરનું એ પૂરું કરે, પોતાના ઘરમાં જ એનો ઉપયોગ થાય, તો એને આપણે પ્રકૃતિ કહીએ છીએ કે સ્વાભાવિક છે કે કમાય છે એટલે એ વાપરે છે. બીજું એવું છે કે પોતે કમાય પણ બીજાનું ખાય, બીજાનું પડાવી લે, બીજાના ઘરમાં ઘૂસી જાય, બીજાની જમીનમાં અડ્ડા જમાવે, એને વિકૃતિ કહેવામાં આવે છે. અને ત્રીજું છે, જે વ્યક્તિ કમાય પણ બીજાના માટે વાપરે, એનું નામ સંસ્કૃતિ છે મિત્રો. કમાયા પછીનું થોડુંક ધન એ બીજાની ખુશી માટે, બીજાના આનંદ માટે, બીજાની સુવિધાઓ માટે જે ઉપયોગમાં લે છે, એ સાચા અર્થની અંદર સંસ્કારિત વ્યક્તિઓ છે મિત્રો. અને એ સંસ્કૃતિની પરંપરાઓ એ આપણા દેશમાં વર્ષોના વર્ષોથી છે. કોઈ હોસ્પિટલ બનાવે છે, તો કોઈ સ્કૂલ બનાવે છે, તો કોઈ કોલેજનું નિર્માણ કરે છે, તો કોઈ બાળકોને શિષ્યવૃત્તિ આપીને આગળ ભણાવવા માટેનો પ્રયાસ કરે છે, તો કોઈ સફાઈ અભિયાનમાં જોડાય છે. અને આ પ્રકારે કામ કરવાને કારણે તમે કદાચ તમારી કંપનીમાં વધુમાં વધુ નફો જે વર્ષે થયો હોય એમાં તમને જેટલો આનંદ નહીં મળ્યો હોય એટલો આનંદ કોઈ ગામની અંદર 100% ટોયલેટ બનાવીને બહેનો ઉપર ખુશી જુઓ એનાથી વધારે હશે મિત્ર. હું માત્ર અહીં એટલું જ કહેવા માટે આવી છું, કારણ કે સમયનો અભાવ છે ને આપણે ઘણા બધા કામો હજી કરવાના છે. પણ આ બધાએ જે CSRનો ઉપયોગ ખાસ કરીને ઘર ઘર ટોયલેટ બનાવવા માટેનો કરવાનો અમે નિર્ણય કર્યો છે. આખા દેશમાં અને આપણા ગુજરાતમાં પણ આજે પણ રાત્રે બહેનોને ટોયલેટ જવા માટેનો મોકો મળતો હોય છે. રાત્રે મતલબ કે એને રાત સુધી રાહ જોવી પડતી હોય છે. એ સ્થિતિમાંથી આપણે બધા લગભગ પસાર થયા છે આની અંદરથી. હું તો પસાર થઈ જ છું મિત્ર. અને એટલા માટે જરૂરી છે કે જો સ્વાસ્થ્ય ઉપર સીધી અસર આને કારણે થતી હોય છે, બહેનો ઉપર તો નાના મોટા જે અત્યાચારો થાય છે આને જ કારણે થતા હોય છે. સગર્ભાવસ્થા માતાઓને પણ આનાથી ઘણું બધું સહન કરવું પડતું હોય છે. પણ આર્થિક મજબૂરીને કારણે અને કેટલીક વખતે જાગૃતિ નહીં હોવાને કારણે ઘરમાં સાધન સંપન્ન ઘર હોવા છતાં પણ એને જરૂરી નથી લાગતું અને એટલા માટે કરતા નથી. અને એટલે છેલ્લા 6 મહિનાથી પૂરા ગુજરાતમાં અમારા કાર્યકર્તાઓ આપ બધા આ કામની અંદર લાગ્યા છો. એ માટે આપ સૌનો ફરીથી હું આભાર વ્યક્ત કરું છું. અને હજુ પણ જેમણે CSRનો ઉપયોગ આમાં ન કર્યો હોય, સાવ હવે જવાબદારી તમારી છે આ બધું કરાવવાની. એવું છે કારણ કે એક સ્વચ્છતા અભિયાન, મુખ્યમંત્રી શ્રી સ્વચ્છતા નિધિની રચના કરવામાં આવી છે કે જેની અંદર તમે 2 રૂપિયાથી માંડીને જેટલું તમારે આપવું હોય તમે આપી શકો છો. જ્યાં જરૂર પડે છે ત્યાં વધારાના ખર્ચ એ રાજ્ય સરકાર તરફથી એ પરિવારને મળે છે, જેથી કરીને એ પોતાનું સારું ટોયલેટ બનાવી શકે. ટોયલેટની સાથે બાથરૂમ પણ હવે લોકો બનાવતા થયા છે. થોડાક 2000 રૂપિયા વધારે ખર્ચે તો ટોયલેટની સાથે સાથે બાથરૂમ પણ થઈ જાય છે. અને એટલા માટે નહાવા ધોવાની સુવિધા પણ એના ઘરમાં હોય તો એક સ્વચ્છતાની દ્રષ્ટિએ અને ખાસ કરીને બાળકોની સ્વચ્છતા માટે આ બધું બહુ જરૂરી હોય છે અને ખરેખર કરવા જેવું છે. નરેન્દ્રભાઈએ જે અભિયાન ચલાવ્યું છે કે દરેક MLA ને MPએ એક ગામ લેવાનું છે. હું તો આપને બંધ વિનંતી કરું છું કે ભલે અહીં CSR આપ્યો હોય પરંતુ એક ગામ, તમે જે ગામના વતની છો એ ગામને તો કમસે કમ કરીને આપો ને સારું એવું ગામ, જેથી કરીને 18,000 ગામડા છે અને ટોયલેટ બનાવવાના છે. એવું નથી, લગભગ 35 લાખ જેટલા ટોયલેટ બનાવવાના છે. અને 35 લાખ ટોયલેટ બનાવવું એ બધું અઘરું છે જ નહીં આપણા બધાના માટે. એવું છે જોઈન્ટલી એફર્ટ કરીએ તો આ બધું જ કામ પૂરું થાય એવું છે. અને મેં નિર્ણય કર્યો છે કે આવતા 2 વર્ષની અંદર ટોયલેટનું કામ પૂર્ણ કરી દેવું. માલ ન્યુટ્રિશનમાં પણ એક પણ બાળક એવું ન હોય કે જે માલ ન્યુટ્રિશનવાળું બાળક હોય. એવું છે એ દિશામાં આપણે આગળ વધી રહ્યા છીએ. આજના આ કાર્યક્રમની અંદર આપ ઉપસ્થિત રહ્યા બદલ આપ સૌનો ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર માનું છું. ધન્યવાદ.
મેડમ, આપનો ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર આપના આશીર્વચનો માટે અને આપનો કિંમતી સમય ફાળવવા માટે અમે અત્યંત આભારી છીએ. Kindly be seated on your seats as we are left with some important phases of this seminar. Please